So I would like to ask you, which are the main challenges of citizen service that governments are facing in COVID times?
Right. So in times of COVID-19, the pandemic for us over here in Europe is a little bit older than a year right now. So we have seen um, the first, let's say, experience of COVID coming into the place of emergency services in early March 2020 last year. And in the month of March, we have been observing with our Avaya emergency services customers over here that many citizens are not really oriented where to turn to in terms of asking the questions that are in their heads on how to deal with COVID-19. If someone is feeling sick, of course, you can reach out to emergency services or to ambulance services. But many of our customers, as they operate the emergency centers inside some major cities as well, they have experienced that a lot of citizens have been calling for non-emergency questions, right? Because they thought, well, it is COVID, it is medical, so I call emergency services or ambulance services. We have seen a huge amount of overwhelming incoming call requests in the first 4, 6 weeks of this pandemic to emergency services, which of course they were not prepared to take. Just simply, you don't staff your emergency services center in order to take care of any kind of non-emergency, maybe medical related questions. So this is one thing that we have observed. There are different solutions to this kind of overwhelming call, incident or request. And some of our customers, they went into a very interesting direction, saying, okay, emergency services are embedded into a region or into a major city's organization and administrative organization as well. So let's try to extend the workforce that you need in order to work on this huge amount of calls with non-emergency services staff from the city administration. So to my first remark, this is where you see that emergency and non-emergency services, at least from the operational side, from the staffing perspective, start to collaborate much better, which of course is something that you can do on the, let's say, organizational and staffing side. So extending your capacity by having more humans, more operators, more call center agents taking these calls. But this is only the organizational side. You also have a technical resource capacity issue here as well, because if you think about, well, I had this conversation for the city of Madrid, and they are operating an emergency center, I think, with about 50 emergency responders at peak time. And they were completely overwhelmed. So they added staff from the city administrative side to have more people being able to answer the calls, but they also had to provide this additional capacity on the technology side. So they needed to, let's say, add additional capacity from the service providers because they needed to have more trunk lines in order to get into the contact center. And they needed to work with us as well, basically overnight, where they said, we need more capacity, we need more licenses, we need more phones, all of these kind of things. So this is something that we have seen as a vendor, where in some cases we could provide overnight response to this within really a few days, giving them the additional licenses, sending them more phones. In other cases, it was more difficult because, well, in other countries, some emergency services organizations have done very similar things, like contact centers in the non-emergency world, so customer service centers. They said within the next 5 days, we need to move our call takers into their home offices. which is, of course, a completely different operational environment when you are used to work on a contact center floor with maybe 20 agents taking these 112 calls. The agents are, let's say, well trained in medical areas, but when it comes to more difficult questions in medical cases, they are used to raise their hand just while it's on the phone. And this is seen by a medical expert who is part of the contact center floor. So when they see someone raising the hand, they just walk there, stand behind the person, listening to the call, and immediately give advice of what to answer and how to answer. Just consider that situation when your agents are starting to work from home. I can raise my hand, but there's no one there, right? So you see, there are many things that changed the operations in emergency services in this last year. Some can be solved quickly, others cannot be solved overnight because the whole, let's say, operational chain somewhat is broken when you are in the middle of the process and you are just disrupting the team's collaboration. So that's something where we also see new solutions need to come to that place. This remote agent working is something that we see in the contact center and the customer services side as well. And I believe it's coming with an additional aspect of, let's say, difficulty to overcome when it comes to emergency services response.
Which are the special problems of the cities and the citizens that need to be attended today?
So I give you an example. In
Okay.
2015, so 6 years back, there was an event hosted by the European Emergency Number Association in the entrance hall of one of the European Union's big buildings in Brussels. And this day was very well prepared and laid out. So I was there as a representative of the European Emergency Number Association, standing on a table with the German flag on, because I'm German, right? And EU, this is all of the countries in Europe. So everyone that was passing through this entry hall could see, okay, something is around there about 112, and there's country tables. So we had a young lady coming to the country table. Young lady, probably somewhere after university degree and in her first years of professional experience. She was a supporter and an administrative supporter for one of the European Parliament's persons from Germany. And she came to the table and she asked, so what is this day about? I said, yeah, it's about the future of emergency services. She said, well, yes, of course, I know there's 112, there's the European emergency number I can dial. What is so special? What is the need? And I asked her, well, if you are calling 112, and what would you do if the person is asking you, if the caller is asking you, where are you? And you are in an environment which you absolutely do not know. She said, well, they just have to look at their screens and they see where I am. And I said, really? That's what you think is happening? And she said, is it not? I said, no, it's not. They know in which mobile operators telephone cell you are with your smartphone, right? But this can be in city environments. This is a radius of a few hundred meters. And you know, in a city like Brussels, a few hundred meters is the difference between 2, 3, 4 different streets or places where they might need to search you. If you can't tell where you are, this is really an issue. Even more difficult if you are on the countryside, then the radius of this mobile service provider radio cell for the mobile phones is probably 5 or 10 or 20 kilometers, right? They only know that person is somewhere over there. And she said, but why is that happening? Because when I try to meet my friend in the evening and we can't find each other immediately, I just go to WhatsApp and I send my friend this needle and it's coming up on their WhatsApp screen, and I immediately can see where they are and where I am. I said, yes, well, this is what is currently happening. So this specific information that we are also used to, smartphones, this is what everyone is carrying in their pockets in these days, right? And if we need to find something, we just open a browser, we do a Google search, we get specific location information. You can order a pizza on the spot with an 8 minutes delivery time just in front of your feet. But when you call emergency services, they need your precise identification of the location from the caller. And if the caller is not able to identify the location for different reasons, because, well, if I would go to Mexico City, you can trust me. I don't know anything about Mexico City, right? I need to look around, and I can't just use that WhatsApp or whatever kind of information to send over. This is starting to change, but 5 years back, 6 years back at that event, that was not there. And the lady, she just didn't understand it, because for her at the age of maybe 25, it was just so natural to use all of these tools. What would you do if you can't talk, but you need to raise an emergency call? There's many reasons why people can't talk. There are people with disabilities that can't hear or talk because of their disability, or there are people that are in a specific situation where you want to prevent yourself from making any noises, right? And then making a phone call. Hello, this is Markus. I'm calling because I've got an emergency. Someone has just broken into my house. It's this kind of element where I believe this is currently the biggest open gap in emergency services, and this is worldwide. The gap starts to close. There is a couple of technologies that can sort the location challenge. There's other technologies that we all know so well from, again, the customer services environment. And Avaya, we are providing customer services solutions throughout the globe, which are multi-channel, where you can just reach out to customer service from your customer service app. You can send a photo, you can tap, you can text or whatsoever. This is slowly coming only to emergency services. And that's probably the two main challenges: multimedia access and precise information about geolocation, which I currently see. Everything else behind this very often is, let's say, depending on solving these challenges.
Solutions it's offering Avaya specifically to solve these problems in
Right.
emergency. Mm-hmm.
It's in general, if you look into the emergency services solutions that Avaya is providing, they of course are, let's say, derivatives from the same solution that we are offering for non-emergency contact centers, for customer service centers, for the general public, right? So it's the same, let's say, back end for the solutions. But of course, we know that, for instance, we can't just simply reach out to emergency services in most countries from a citizen app or from a website in order to raise an emergency request. So everything is going through a phone currently in these days, right? So if you can't make a call to 911 or whatever the emergency number in the specific country is, you are cut off from reaching out to emergency services. Even though Avaya have the solution to do this wonderful multi-channel world, it currently doesn't fit into the environment of emergency services, because in most countries, emergency services are voice-only services, right? So if we are looking, we could immediately provide a multi-channel solution to emergency services, but the prerequisites on their side need to be met as well, right? So the prerequisites are: open up your emergency communication centers and connect them to the internet. The usual response I get onto this statement is, whoa, you're saying we should open our highly secured multimeter thick walls and firewalls and everything in our IT environment. We should open this to the evil? No, not. But at the same time, they want to talk to me about multimedia access for citizens, right? And you see, this is something that I currently see happening in many, many countries. There is the understanding in public safety and emergency services that demographics have changed, right? We are no longer in the late 90s where the phone was the most appropriate communication tool. Since 2007, when Apple invented the iPhone and made it available to the mass markets, everyone is using apps. And with apps, there's so much more of communication. I have 3 children, right? My youngest child is 15 years old, and he was born in 2006, so in the year before Apple released the iPhone. He doesn't know anything else but the iPhone. He, of course, has a smartphone. When I look at his monthly telephone service bills, he has a flat rate for making calls. I see 1 or 2 calls monthly on his bill. Probably it's the same with your families and children, right? So demographics have changed. The younger part of the population and of the citizens don't see the phone as the natural medium to reach out for help. Um, Even I see sometimes that young people are afraid of making a phone call. Why are they afraid of making a phone call? Because it's immediate, right? You ask me the question here on this video service and you expect an immediate answer. If I would just turn around and think 3 minutes how I would like to answer to you, would you be okay with that? Probably not, right? So, but this is how many young people communicate, right? They say, oh, I just made a phone call to my friend. I heard this from my daughter. My daughter is 21 year old this June. So, and when I asked her, so what was she saying? I don't know. I haven't heard her answer yet. Well, why you were making a phone call? Yeah, I was taking WhatsApp and I was sending her a voice message. I said to my daughter, a voice message is not a
Yeah.
phone call, right? But you see, this communication behavioral change of not being immediate is so well known to the younger generation, and they do this with video messages, with voice messages, typing messages, sending emojis, and there's so many ways to express and describe a situation. That is something which currently is not available in the emergency services world in most of the countries. So coming back to your initial question, what does Avaya offer in terms of solutions that take into account this very specific situation that first needs to be overcome before emergency services can just use off-the-shelf solutions, right? Like any other contact center does as well. Um, we have come to the conclusion that it does absolutely make sense to use solutions that start on an engagement level of the simple phone call, but if needed, they can be escalated to, let's say, more richer multimedia interactions with the citizens, right? And we do this by establishing a second channel of communication. Whilst you're on the phone call, and you might have difficulties to describe where you are or what you see. Oh, I'll tell you a quick story. I was on an emergency services event in the United Kingdom back in 2014. Um, Someone was on stage speaking about an event that happened. A person was calling somewhere in the middle of the United Kingdom emergency services because obviously there was a fire. The person was a non-native English speaker, and the call taker was asking him, what do you need? Why are you calling? And the response was, fire, fire. this was the only word the person could express in that situation, right? Fire, fire. So where is this fire? Fire, fire. Is it a big fire? Is it in the house or is it outside? Fire, fire, fire. Okay, they could find in some way the location of the person, and they decided to send a fire engine. 7 minutes or 8 minutes later, when the fire engine was approaching the scene, they listened into the radio channel of the communication with the fire engine, and what they heard from the engine driver was, 10 more engines, please. This was an industry fire, right? And if only this poor person who was not able to say anything else than fire, 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 could have been engaged in some kind of an enriched multimedia conversation and collaboration environment, they could have just lifted their phone, taken a picture, and immediately sent this picture into the command and control room. And then you could consider that the dispatch decision of sending a single fire engine might have been different, right? So that's something, coming back to my point. We have technologies that we can use in order to establish a multimedia channel over the top of the existing voice call. So you don't drop the call, you still stay online with the person on the call, but you send a text message back to that person hears the ping of the receiving text message on their smartphone, and in that text message there is a link. If you click on this link, a browser on the smartphone is going to open. The browser, as this is a security feature of Apple and Android phones, the browser is going to ask you, do you allow to share your location information? That's the same process. When you're walking somewhere in a city and you're looking for a, a bakery, you open your smartphone where you are, open the browser, type bakery, and the first question you're probably getting from the search engine is, can I have your location, please? And once you accept this, you will have all of the bakeries around the place where you are. We are using the same principle in here. This link that we are sending to the person clicks on the link, it's opening a browser is asking, please share your location. And when the person accepts this, in the contact center, they immediately see the geo position with the same precision that you are using when you're sending the WhatsApp needle to your friend, to your family, to whomever to find you, or that you are using when doing a Google search. So this is resolving in an environment that is not yet fully prepared to deal with this location issue. This is resolving issue number one, where is the call coming from, if you haven't known by then. But also, when this browser is open on the smartphone, you can also see, well, maybe I can show this to you just briefly. I can't do it right now live, but I can try to show to you how this might look like. You are receiving this kind of SMS message, right? And you see, when you look in my camera, there's this link in the SMS message, right? And if I right now click on this link, a web browser is opening and asking me that question, can I have your location, please? And I say, yes, of course, you can have my location. And then the information is sent over. And then in this browser window, you will see applications popping up, opening the camera in order to take a photo of the situation and immediately send it to the other side, or even to create a video stream from your camera straight into the public safety answering point. And this is happening without the phone call dropping, right? So we keep the consistent call, but we extend the communication capabilities. And also, well, a lot of this, of course, is not only about the technical part of the solution. Technically, that's easy. But the more interesting part is, how do you embed these capabilities into your operations, right? So your public safety answering point staff need to know how to guide the caller into that situation, right? You have to assume that the caller is very nervous, might be in danger, might be full of fear of the situation, right? And then you need to bring them through that situation. Say, I'm sending you a text message. Look at your smartphone. The text message is coming in right now. When the text message is in, open the text message, click on the link. When click on the link, accept to share your location. You know, this is something that you need to be prepared from the operational perspective as well. And then, of course, that is also something that you want to prepare your citizens upfront, right? As soon as you start multimedia engagement to become a natural part of the emergency calling process, parents need to train their children. What do you do when you see mommy or daddy lying on the floor? I call 911. Yeah, well done. This is what my parents told me, right? You call 112 when you see anything happening that is dangerous. Now, parents need to understand there is a multimedia access to emergency services as well. You probably need to do press campaigns of starting to advertise the service, making people feel that there's more coming that they can deal with, educate them with video clips on the TV stations as well. So this is how the new emergency services are working for you. We can do much more than we could just until now. And that's something, as you know, it starts on the operational side, it starts on the technical side, but the reach of these new services needs to go straight into the heart of every country, straight into citizens' heads as well. And you see, I'm always calling this is the start of digital transformation in emergency services, where today we are still in many, many countries in the analog age, right? To be true and honest, when you talk to emergency services all over the world, most of their installations of the technical systems are older than 10 years, right? So, and this is just starting to change right now. And sometimes this is a journey which you need to start with first creating the vision. Where do governments and citizens want to be in 5 years from now when it comes to emergency communication? And once you know what vision you have and establish that vision in your organization, you need to start building a strategy step by step, right? And identify what are the low hanging fruit here. What are the things that are hurting you most in your day to day business that you can resolve immediately without ripping everything apart that you've done so far, because you need to really start onto a journey without being disruptive here. So that's what I observe. And I can tell you, probably from what I've heard from my colleagues in Latin America, probably the problems and the challenges in Latin America are very much the same in this respect than we find them in North America, than we find them in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, everywhere. It's just a matter of where you are in this process. Sometimes you find really nice country solutions that have been already established because someone started to think about this very, very early. But you know, the general majority is starting to follow when technologies are well introduced and these solutions are becoming off-the-shelf solutions, right? That's something which I hear every day and see every day.